Okay, excellent. All right, fine. I'm sorry I'm late. The cold outside, that's Amalak. Asher Korcha, right? So we're fighting Amalak by being here, right? So today is Moshe Rabbeinu's Yortzeit, Zayin Adar. So we'll make our remarks centered around him, L'chvoidei. The most obvious question to ask is that we know that when we first encountered Amalek, in Parshas Beshalach, so the war was done on two levels. Moshe Rabbeinu with his hands up and Yehoshua with the sword. And it was indispensable, right? Kasher Yoram Moshe Yadav v'Gavar Esav v'Kasher v'Gavar Amalek. He had his hands up, so when he had his hands up, Am Yisrael was victorious. And when his hands went down, so Rahman al-Tzana was the other way. So aside from understanding why the war was on these two different levels, there's a more fundamental question. If Moshe Rabbeinu was so essential, so necessary, to beat Amalek, so where is he in the next? Where's the Moshe Rabbeinu figure when Shaul had to go against Amalek? Or how we have to face off with Amalek. Muhammad Hashem ba'Amalek midor dor. Whoever carries the sword is a continuation of Yehoshua. Fine. Where's the hemshech of Moshe Rabbeinu? I'm saying, who represents? You have generals, so that's the Yehoshua type figure. What stands in the place of Moshe Rabbeinu? In our Milchama and Amalek for all generations.
Our Torah learning, our Gedolim that are continuing to spread Torah.
We'll discuss it. Okay. It's really all of the above, but I want to, get a more exact definition. So now. Related, as we will show, this is related. This upcoming Shabbos is Shabbos Zachor, and so the din of Shabbos Zachor, the din of Zachor, Parshas Zachor, even if it has to be once a year, which is not clear that according to the Chinuch doesn't have to be even once a year. As long as, whenever you're in danger of forgetting, you have to remind yourself. But we do it once a year because that's called the Shir of Shikhacha, a whole 12 months. The thing is, why do we do it on the Shabbos before Purim? Why don't we do it on Purim itself? So now the poskim bring a very interesting remez to the idea that we should do the mitzvah of Zachor prior to Purim, from the pasuk Vayomim ha'ele niskorim v'nasim. These days are remembered and performed. The Megillah says about the days of Purim. So it says two lashonos, niskorim v'nasim. They are remembered, but they also are upheld. We perform the mitzvahs of Purim. So and from there they say that this is a reference that niskorim refers to Zachor, Parsha Zachor. And this, to the best of my knowledge, there's not a Gemara anywhere. I do believe this. The Rishonim talk about this. Rishonim, the poskim. So that the pasuk is alluding to Zachor and then Purim, and that we should do Zachor before Purim. Niskorim v'nasim. Do Zechira before the Asiyah. Right. Purim is the Asiyah, the doing. Right. So we should do the Zechira before the Asiyah. But it still needs to be further. Understood why the Shabbos before. Why not on Tanis Esther? Let's say, the day before. All right. And we will yet come back to that. The answer lays in a Tanchuma, as we will show. Right? But it's an interesting thing that we keep Parshas, the Kiyum of Mitzvah Zachor, separate from the Mitzvah of Purim. It has to come first. And why the Shabbos before? Another thing, the interesting thing about the Chag of Purim is that it's a Yom Tov that really bridges Torah Shebechsav and Torah Sheba'al Peh. Right, in the sense that it's D'Rabbanan, right? takana of the Anshe Knesset Hagdola that lived through the whole situation. Right? It's not biblical, but yet, and while we're still on that point, I should say, while we're still on that point, there is a Tanchuma in Parshas Noach that the Maral brings, that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu held over the mountain over us, it was because we were reluctant to accept the Torah Sheba'al Peh, and therefore Hagdar Kiblu. Imagine when we reaccepted the Torah in the days of Achashverosh, it was actually a reacceptance of the Torah Sheba'al Peh, and then it makes good sense because we are definitely showing that we accept the authority of the Sanhedrin, the Torah Sheba'al Peh, to legislate that we have to do the mitzvahs of Purim. But there's something else that Esther had. She faced off with the Sanhedrin in her day. The Gemara says in Megillah Daf Zayin, it was not simple, and it remained a machlokes, and not all Tanoim even agree. But she faced off with them that Megillah Esther should be added to the Kisvei HaKodesh. They initially said not. It should not be one of the books of Tanakh. And then until they finally found a remes, Ksov, Zos, Zikorom, Besefer, Zos, Zikorom, Basefer, it's alluding to that all the extra words, in that directive to Moshe Rabbeinu to write the story of Amalak. So Zos, Zikorom, Basefer, leaves room that all these different words. Basefer alludes to Megillah Esther. But until, like I said, there's even a sheet in the Gemara that wasn't that's not the halacha, but we do paskin that is the halacha, that the book of Esther is one of the Kisvei HaKodesh. It is one of the books of the Tanakh. So it's not the kedusha of Chumash, right? But it is, but it's definitely Torah Shebechsav.
Why didn't they want to add it?
That's right. So we'll discuss that in a second. What was the big issue? Well, let's ask it the other way. Why was it so important to Esther that Megillah Esther should be part of Tanakh, and they look for remes? She was fighting for that. Now, it's a very interesting thing that everyone knows the other famous halacha that's brought down in the Rambam at the end of Hilchos Megillah. Now, the Rambam says that L'Asid Lavo, all Kisvei HaKodesh will fall out of use, except for Chumash and Megillah Esther. There are only going to be two books in Torah Shebechsav. The Chamisha Chumshei Torah, the Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu, and Megillah Esther. Which again sort of brings us full circle. That the only other thing that there'll be in Tanakh, other than the book of Moshe Rabbeinu, is Megillah Esther, showing that Moshe Rabbeinu again has something to do, with the story of Purim. Everyone's probably heard the famous Gemara in Chulin, Daf Kuf Lametes, Moshe men Torah minayin. Where's a remes Moshe Rabbeinu before he was born? So by the Gzer of the Mabul, B'Shagamu Basar, B'Shagam is Gematria Moshe, and then Gemara immediately launches into the Esther, first of all, Hama min Torah minayin, Hamina eitz, Esther min Torah, Marcha min Torah minayin, Kachel b'Sayim Rosh, more dror, the Targum says, Meira Dichya, right, and Esther min Torah minayin, Vanochi haster aster ponai. So the Gemara lumps together Moshe Rabbeinu with all the characters of the story of Purim, again showing that there is a very integral connection. Right, and which again brings us back to our opening question. So if there's a very integral connection, where is Moshe Rabbeinu henceforth? Where is he when we need him? As we have a Muhammad Hashem ba Amalak midor dor. So there's a contradiction seemingly in Psukim. Not a contradiction really. I mean to say, we have one message, in the story in Parshas B'Shach, and we have another message that comes out from what we read in Parshas Zohar. The Psukim of Zohar, Eish Asher Asachal Amalek. In the Psukim that we read in Parshas B'Shach, what happened directly before the Muhammad Ba'amalek is that they were Am Yisrael needed water, right? By Masa Meriva. And Moshe Rabbeinu hit the rock, and out came water. The first time he hit the rock. Next time, later, 40 years later, he's supposed to speak to the rock. But this time he hit the rock, and he was supposed to hit the rock. And they, Al Nasosam Al Hashem Leimor, Hayesh Hashem Bekirbeinu Im Oyin, and then immediately after, Vayavu Amalek. Right? They tested Hashem. to ask, is Hashem in our midst or not? And then Vayavo Amalek. Right? Seemingly because of the sin of asking Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu im oyin. So immediately Amalek comes as that's their punishment. As Rashi says right there in the Psukim. Right? Now it's time we have to understand what the sin really was. Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu im oyin. You can't say that Am Yisrael didn't believe in God. Who took them out of Mitzrayim? Who just split the Yamsuf for them? Who's been giving them mun? So what does it mean? Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu? What were they asking really? Even the question, needs to be understood. But because they asked that question, it was more than just a question, it was actually a declaration, as we're going to show. So because of that, Vayavo Amalek. But in Parshas Kiseitze, the psukim of Zohar that we're going to read on Shabbos come right after the tzivui of Leha Bekischa Efa Ve'efa Gdola V'Ktana. You shouldn't have two different types of weights. You got to be honest with your weights and measures. You have to have, and that's mamash. There's a low sase doraisa. You're not even allowed to, use them. You just have to get rid of them. False weights and measures have to be eliminated. Makes no difference if it's going to work out to the benefit of your client. Makes no difference. You're not allowed to have wrong weights and measures. Right? So, and that right after that, Zochar es asher Amalek. So Rashi says right there, if you lie about mishkolos, if you lie about weights and measures, Amalek's going to come. That's what Rashi says. No, seemingly Amalek comes when you seemingly, we'll discuss really what Am Yisrael was saying. By Hashem b'kibedim ayin. Now Rashi's saying something else. Right? If you lie about weights and measures, then Amalek comes. So now let me ask you another question. Why lie about weights and measures? How about if you steal? No weights and measures. Stop. Outright theft. Would Amalek come? Seemingly like weights and measures is an elegant way to steal.
But it's clear. When something is weighed, it is what it is. There's no room for saying, well, it wasn't really this.
Yeah.
But if you pervert it, if you put an extra little stone on it or whatever, then you're perverting it. But if you're really looking at it honestly, it is what it is.
Yes, that's my question. Is there something about weights and measures more than just stam theft and cheating? That Amalek is connected, cheating about weights and measures. That's what I'm asking.
I'm trying to say you don't really see that you are being cheated.
So I'm just saying, I want to ask...
Also, maybe it's the intent, like Amalek had the chutzpah, the gall, to even think that he could try, after hearing everything that happens in Yisrael, he went ahead anyway, the same way. If you are not dealing honestly, you're going totally against the Torah, which represents emet. So where do you come off? Like, how do you have the gall to even think that way, that you can even do that?
Okay.
So I think the weight and measure is a concretized thing, that you've now made the inyan of cheating into this physical, concrete thing that you're putting on in front of you, and you're stealing through something, like you're changing what really is.
Okay. Okay.
It fools you because you think it's honest and it's really false. So like Amalek, he presents a false picture.
Okay, very good. So let's, what everyone said is correct. I just want to pull it together in into solid definitions. All right. Everyone knows, the Gemara we just quoted. Haman minatar minayin haminaitz. The Rebbe is also the Chet Eitzadas. So now we learned right here in Nefesh HaChaim just last week, and I told you it has to do with Purim. I said, right? The way our minds work, that we are so prone to doubt, or we could get seriously confused and even rationalize the worst things. It's a famous chazal. Satan v'Pnina l'shem shemayim niskabnu. The Satan himself, and even Pnina, and Pnina, the co-wife of Chana, they're mechaven l'shem shemayim. Pnina wants to get her daven more, right? And the Satan also, he says, I'm doing my job, just doing my job. So the Kotzker Rebbe said, how did Chazal know? Well, which pasuk did they learn it out from? They made a sweeping statement, that they were mechavan, as if they know what the son and Penina were thinking. How did they know? The Kotzker, it's very simple. The biggest atrocities are only done l'shem shamayim. So, so aside from that, the Eitz Hadas Tov V'Ra gets us seriously confused, like we learned last week in Nefesh HaChaim. There's not a single mitzvah that's not adulterated with a little bit of ulterior motives. Right? And there's not an Avera that can't be rationalized because Das, Miloshin connection, Tov and Ra have been hopelessly mixed and adulterated, and it makes life so confusing. So an element of that is, of course, doubt. Because confusion is, another word for confusion is suffix. And that's really how HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as it were, sticks it in Adam Rishon's face. Ha min ha'etz, did you eat from the tree? Well, as if it's a suffix. Showing him to, where he fell to. He lost clarity. And that's the remez to Haman min ha'Torah. Ha min ha'etz. So everyone knows what it says in Sfarim. Amalak itself is gematria suffix. It's true. Work it out. Amalek is gematria suffix. Doubts. Suffix is the deadliest thing. Right? An outright lie can be checked. An outright lie, it may take time, but you find, you could call it out. You claim XYZ happened, so you go back, pull up the newspapers from that period, you'll show, right? You say something concrete, something concrete, even if it's total sheker, can be refuted because you said something concrete. You said a time and a place, so you could bring Adam, that could attest that happened at time and place. Right? A suffix can never really be resolved, right? If you leave it really nebulous enough, like don't say a time and date, how can you call it out? Maybe it did happen, because you never pinned it to a particular point that I'll bring Adam as to what happened at that time. Right? Suffix could be the deadliest thing, right? Much more than an outright lie. Because I said an outright lie, concrete lie, so it's a concrete statement, it could be checked. It may not be easy, but it could be done. I always say, it's something you have to realize about the Yetzer Hara, which is also Amalek, a nation that lives out. The Yetzer Hara has no principles. The man has no principles. Right? He'll use any argument that works. Even it might contradict what he said yesterday, he doesn't care. You think he has principles? He's not allowed to contradict himself? Well, contradict himself. Right? You think the Yetzer Hara would tell you, don't be a hypocrite and watch that thing that's inappropriate. Don't be a hypocrite. I saw you doubted with so much kavanah. He's not going to tell you that. He doesn't care. He wants to be machshel you in any way. He has no principles. And he plays both sides of the argument. Now where this is especially lethal is that there are certain things that we have, because we've fallen into Das Tov V'Ra, that we just can't wrap our heads around. We have our famous dilemmas. There's Yediyah and Bechira. Right? God, if God knows the future and before it happens, how do we have free will? We have the Hishtadlus and Bitachon dilemma. Right? If you have Bitachon, so why you bother with Hishtadlus? Right? And we have, Tzadik V'Ralo. We have our serious issues that there probably is an answer. Right? But, our minds are not big enough to, not probably, there is. Just can't wrap our heads around the whole thing. Right? And the Yetzer Hara likes, playing, with this, like, hey, either way. You know, if God knows you're going to do the sin, you can't but not do the sin. He knows you're going to do the sin, so you must. Right? All right? All right? All right? And if you really have free will, he won't see this one. He doesn't know everything. All right? And that's how, playing, like any good politician, playing both sides of the issue. Speak to this audience, tell them what they want to hear. Speak to that audience. And he always tells you, whatever your taiva wants to hear, even though he said something the opposite just yesterday. Machbatlo, he doesn't care. He doesn't have principles. As long as he brings you down. Right? That's the... that's the serious, that's what makes him so lethal, right? If we would just have one story, one concrete lie, say it, we've outthought him. But he shapeshifts, and he just, in every door, it just tells you whatever you want to hear, or whatever you fall for. Right? If it would be something concrete, would have slugged him up a long time ago. He doesn't say anything concrete. Right? And that's what he wants, doubt. To say something with certainty would be something that you could call him out on. He wants doubt. Doubt is where the Yetzer Hara thrives, in confusion.
But isn't the basis of even how we learn our Torah, the Yesh Omrim, the Yesh Omrim?
Yes.
That's also doubt. That's
Okay.
also confusion about, like, if you want to get a clear psak halach and you ask somebody, well, some people do it this way and some people do it this way, so then...
Very good. Okay, so no, you're getting to the point. You're actually one step ahead of me, but you're not 2 steps ahead of me. That's where it goes. Because that's I wanted to get to that point. And that's exactly the point. That's exactly the point. So we could understand now already on a superficial level. We'll get into this deeper. Why Moshe Rabbeinu is the antidote to Amalek. Moshe emes v'toraso emes. That the Moshe Rabbeinu is gave us the Torah's emes. And that's really the depth of what Chazal say, and it's true, and never forget it. Barasi Yetzer Hara, Barasi Torah Tavlin. The real antidote to the Yetzer Hara. There's nothing better than Limud HaTorah. Nefesh HaChaim and Shar Daot. Be'ez Hashem, we'll get there one day. Hazar Hashem. Right? Shar Daot says, really, Musar can't help you without Talmud Torah. All the Musar in the world can't help you. You need the Torah just to set your head straight. Right? So we understand that Moshe Rabbeinu Bifrat, Moshe Rabbeinu, as we learned, in the Derech Hashem, we had a whole chapter on this, on the Mila of Nevuas Moshe, what sets him categorically apart from any other Navi that ever lived, and that's why only he could give us Torah, and not any other Navi, is that he speaks to HaKadosh upon him, direct, not even through a Malach, directly from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, b'marev v'lo b'chidos, wasn't even taught to him through metaphor. It's like the absolute truth, not clothed in anything, not clothed in metaphor, not to say that the other Nevi'im, are confused. They're not, but, it's just not the same level. It's not the same intensity, even though what they say is true also. But, Moshe Rabbeinu has this unmitigated revelation. That's why you find that the style of Chumash is a different style than Yeshayahu, Yirmiyahu. They talk, there's a Amare, which needs interpretation. Now we know what we're supposed to know from it. We know what we're supposed to know from it. But Moshe Rabbeinu is just the straight, do like this, do like that. There's B'mare v'lo b'chidos, as HaKadosh Baruch Hu explains to Aaron and Miriam, the difference between them and Moshe Rabbeinu. It is the pure, unadulterated truth. All right? As I say, Moshe emes v'toraso emes. And that's how Moshe Rabbeinu stands, the unadulterated truth, versus the suffix of Amalek. All right? But here's the thing, that, and it's on 2 levels. There's on a certain level that it was always meant to be this way in a certain way, but it became a lot worse because of the Chet HaEgel and other things that we did. right? That even in the most, you know, pristine model, that Am Yisrael would have not succumbed, right? Still, lo b'shamayim. At one point, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted the Torah to come down to earth, and at the Sanhedrin, that sit, Har HaBayis, the Lishka Lazit, they should decide the law. Torah's for us, right? And there would be machlokas. There would be different days, because Shem Partzufeim Shavim Kachen Del Sem. Just like everyone has his own face, Chazal say everyone has their own mind, and even in the most pristine model, there still would have been a certain amount of machlokas. Granted, probably a lot less if people have their heads screwed on straight. So chances are, there have been only 2 or 3 possibilities, as opposed to like every person's like a whole world, a whole different headspace. But there would have been a certain amount where Am Yisrael, HaKadosh wanted to make Am Yisrael partners in the Torah. Right? That's the Torah Shebaal Peh. The Torah Shebaal Peh. It's not just that there was so much of Torah left, to oral understanding. Right? But Torah Shebaal Peh is the technology to create new halacha with the Midas Shatar Dreshes Behem, with Svara and Pilpul. And that's, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted that after Torah would come down to earth, Am Yisrael would now make the Torah forever relevant with the power of Torah Shebaal Peh. As the new shilas arise, as technology develops and new shilas come up, the Sanhedrin, with the Torah, Matan Torah was just once. We weren't supposed to go back, and ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu what the halacha is. Which is also a very interesting thing to note, that this is a halachic difference between Moshe Rabbeinu and all the other Nevi'im. Moshe Rabbeinu, when Bno Tzlofcha came, or they asked the Shah by Pesach Sheni, he was allowed to say, Imdu ve'eshma ma'itzav Hashem. You wait here, I'll ask God. Any other Navi who does that gets put to death. Any other Navi except Moshe Rabbeinu, because lo b'shamayim. Right, it was just him. He was the one prophet in history that, just like he brought the Torah for earth, he was licensed to still ask God his shilas, but he didn't have to. Right? The Sanhedrin in the desert had the authority to also use the Midas Shatar Dreshes Behem and Paskin Nu Halacha. Rambam writes it black on white. They did. In the desert, they made Kal V'chomers, they made drushes, they got to work right away. Right? Except that when there were things that they felt were too big for them, so they asked Moshe Rabbeinu uses his license to ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu halacha, which was only for him. Right? Anyone other than him, or the next generation. In the words of the Rambam, Yehoshua and Pinchas do the same thing as Ravina and Ravashi. It's just Moshe Rabbeinu. So of course, when you're living under Moshe Rabbeinu, it has a certain spillover effect, but it was always meant that way, that the Torah should go and become a part of the people. Now, it wouldn't have been so difficult and so complex and all different shitas if Am Yisrael would have kept a certain level of purity, because when the mind is pure, so people mostly think alike. But when the mind is adulterated, so everyone has their own unique Yetzirah and their own unique Negias, own unique temperament, whatever. And that's why, things splinter. And things at one point splintered so badly that we couldn't even get a consensus anymore. That's what happened with the schools of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. That's what happened over there. The Grand Rabbinical Court fell apart. They could never get a consensus on anything. So it splintered into 2 major schools. That's really what happened. That's what it means. They just couldn't get along. They couldn't, it's not hard to not reach a consensus, right? 34 say this way, 34 say that way, and 2 say we don't know. Boom. No consensus. No, there's no hachra. Yeah?
Are you saying that, was this before Yisro gave Moshe the idea of parceling out and helping people decide the different questions? You're saying, was it like right after Matan Torah, where I think we learned that Moshe Rabbeinu did learn with the people? So
right.
When did this sort of delegation, so to speak?
Well, it was always meant to happen, but Moshe Rabbeinu tried to hold it all together, keep it all by him, and Yisro gave the answer that's just too hard, but it was always meant to eventually happen that there would be a Sanhedrin. And initially, Moshe Rabbeinu tried to hold the whole thing together. But then, HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself, listen, there are a few different accounts of that story. At one point, Moshe Rabbeinu himself complained to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. was in Parshas Baaloscha. He himself complained. I said, okay, give smicha to 70 skenim. You know, a lot of different versions of that story, but the common different angles of the story. It was meant to happen. It was definitely meant to happen. It was going to be a Sanhedrin.
But you said when they disagreed, they went back to Moshe. So that there was disagreement already in the Midbar about how to...
Sure, Jews always disagree. No, that's not. No, the thing is like this: that is that Moshe Rabbeinu was licensed, right? Moshe Rabbeinu was licensed to ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu his shilos, even after, and that's probably what happened. But they also got to work making kal v'chomer gzeira shavas. That's what the Gemara says in Tamura. And the Yimei Hevlo Shel Moshe, they forgot thousands of kal v'chomer gzeira. They forgot all the different drushes that they made. Then Osnio ben Knaz restored it all with his pilpul. Right, but they got to work right away. So what did they take on to decide themselves? What did they send Moshe Rabbeinu to ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Whatever. But it was always meant that the Torah should be in people. Right?
And there's a whole system on how to not get involved in suffix and doubt.
Yes.
All these midos and everything from generation to generation gets transmitted, so there isn't doubt, but there is room for people to have different opinions within Torah.
There is, even in the most pristine system, there could be machlokas.
But that's different than doubt.
That's right. I didn't say it was the same. Did I say it was the same? I didn't say it was the same. It's not the same, but it could lead to that, as we're going to explain. On the famous, there's a tshuva. There's a book called Shas Tshuvas Min Hashamayim from one of the Balei HaTosfos, Rav Yaakov Meroiz, from Roiz. And this man, it's obviously there's long pilpulim in the Achronim. What gave him the right to do this? He used to ask his shilas to God. It was Sheilas Chalom. Sheilas Chalom, it's a ritual that if you know how to do it, you get your answer in a dream. Sometimes it's leaving. It can happen in many different forms. Like it's leave parchment under your pillow and writing appears. Right. He knew how to do it. Look, So he asked HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what's the, tefillin? It should be like Rashi or Rabbeinu Tam. Come on, let's settle it once and for all. So listen, Kashem Shi Machlokes, so the answer he got back, Kashem Shi Machlokes Lamata, Kachi Machlokes Lamala. Right? It's like it's a Machlokes on earth, it's a Machlokes in heaven. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I think, says like Rabbeinu Tam, and Palmalia Shomala says like Rashi. And some days,
I don't know why I'm laughing. It's so sad. I'm reacting to that.
Right.
Maybe it's just to be mazaka us either which way we do it.
Correct. Good answer.
All right. No, not. Yeah. You're saying Torah.
About what it should be.
Because you could read the Torah like this, you could read it like that, you could work it out either way. That's what it says. A certain amount of machlokas there could have always been.
No, but you have machloka l'shem shamayim.
I'm saying, no, machlokas Hashem, obviously. It's sofli kaim. There could be multiple opinions in Torah, even from the get-go, even without falling into doubt. Even without falling into doubt.
Is that because what we do here reflects what goes on up there? That idea?
There is that idea, yes. But Moshe Zichron Livracha used to use algebra to explain. X squared is equal to 4. What's x?
2.
Only?
Minus 2.
-2. Both solve the equation. That's Elovel Divrei Elokim Chaim.
I missed that. The 2 and then what did...
Minus 2 minus 2 minus
Right? The Torah is like a complex equation, and it could be decoded in many ways, and they're both true. That's it. All right, but the thing is that Moshe Rabbeinu standing in front of the Shechina, right? He doesn't see no two ways. Or alternatively, if God tells him two different ways that both are emes, so he can't see that one is right and the other one's wrong. He sees it both emes. Right? But when it comes into the kalim of people's minds, no, so even too valid, Beis Shammai thinks Beis Hillel is crazy, Beis Hillel thinks Beis Shammai is crazy. I mean, and I mean that in a nice way. Chazal say, by the way, that they got along great on a personal level. Things you wouldn't hear about today. They did shidduchim together, and they ate from each other's kashrus, they had machloksin about things about Chi of Karis, And they ate by each other, and they married into each other. Right. The human mind, so, these 2 days, Rashi thought Rabbeinu Tam was wrong, Rabbeinu Tam thought Rashi was wrong, as far as tefillin. Right? To Moshe Rabbeinu, either there's only one way, and the machlok is because the people don't know, and this way it seems right, or alternatively both are right. Because Moshe Rabbeinu gets it directly from God. Right, but when it comes to the Torah Shabbal Peh, it's Nislabish in people, Kshem Partzuvim Shon Kachen Del Sem Shavos. And everyone sees it their way. So some neshamas just hook up with this possibility. They can't relate to the other possibility, and the other neshamas hook up to the other possibility and can relate to the first, and that's nice because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted a colorful Torah. But it's 12 different tribes, and it's supposed to be considered to be was once upon a time considered beautiful. That one Torah could as the Chazal Chazal kepatish yifoseit sela. That you smash a stone with a ram, it just splinters flying. It's also divrei Torah, break up into many nitzotzos. They break up into many sparks. And in Torah Shabbal Peh, everyone's supposed to think he's right. Not only that, everyone thinks it's his Torah. And that's why it's the halacha is Talmid Chacham shemachal al kvodo machul. A Talmid Chacham could tell you don't have to honor me. As opposed to a melch. Melch shemachal kvodo and kvodo machul. Even a king says, sit down, you have to honor a king, even against his will, because it's not his own honor, it's the honor of the nation, it's the honor of Klal Yisrael. So what the Gemara says, so wait a minute, so Talmid Chacham, it's the honor of the Torah. Torah dilei, was it his Torah? Yeah, Torah dilei, ubetoraso yege yomabah. It's called his Torah, because as the Pasuk says to him, ubetorato, his, possessive, yege yomam v'layla. Now in Torah Shabbal Peh, right, you get the idea that it goes by your understanding, and it's your chiddush, and you worked it out, and it's your Torah. And somehow it all has to fit that it's God's Torah. It all has to, we have to sort of hold that together. Right, and it means that the Torah Shebechsav and Torah Shabbal Peh dichotomy sort of runs parallel to the Yediyah Ubechira quandary. Right? God knows everything. He knows all the possibilities, and he also knows which is the correct possibility. And yet, we still have free will. We still have to choose, make a decision. Still make a decision. That runs very parallel to the Torah Shebechsav, Torah Shabbal Peh paradox. God said it all. It's his Torah. He knows. Right? And yet, I have to go with my understanding. I have to go with my understanding if it's against God. Everyone knows the famous story. Rabbi Elazar ben Horknus and Rabbi Yehoshua, Tanu Shachnai, they went, he went up against all the chacham of his door about Shaila and Tum and Tara. Right? And he got so frustrated they weren't admitting to him. Right? And so the water flowed backwards and the tree went, a tree uprooted. Kosle Beisamer Shochichu. Mina Shamayim Yochichu. A Basco came out. Malachem et Soza B'ni Aloch Kabosu B'chol Mokom. Ambar Rishua Raglov. Rishua gets up. Lo Bashamayim. It's amazing. Stood up to God and said, listen, Torah was given already, it's ours. It's your religion or God's religion. Who are you worshiping? Think about it, it's amazing. Right? You're supposed to do it to serve God. And he says, Allah Chazak Rabbi Elazar. No. And it sort of runs parallel to the Yediyah Bechira, or the Hishtadlus and Bitachon, these paradoxes, they all run parallel. Right, if God's taking care of everything, why are you making Hishtadlus? Huh? Now, the answer is, now because we're in Das Tovara, right, our intelligence is limited and tainted and confused. These things sound like, contradictions that really are disconcerting, right? But somehow we know that they're both true. They're both true. Or to say it like this, simply like this is the way God wants it. God wants us to argue with him. Like the Gemara goes on and says, when Yehoshua got up and said, what HaKadosh will do at that time, said, Nitzchuni bana. It's the way God wants it. So the bitachon is true, and he still wants us to make ishtadlus. The idea is true, but still he gave us bechira because he wants to have bechira. That's it. Whether we could wrap our heads around it or not, it's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. So now, it's very interesting chazal. I don't remember if Rashi brings in the Chumash. It's Vayovo Amalek, Vayelachem im Yisrael b'Refidim. Right, Amalek came and fought with Am Yisrael in Refidim. Right, so says Chazal that Refidim is an acronym. Rafu Yedeim. Sherafu Yedehem min HaTorah. Am Yisrael's hands slipped from the Torah. What does that mean? What does that piece of poetry mean? Well, you learn Torah with your eyes, your ears, your hands. Rafu Yedehem min HaTorah. Right. Hands represent doing. The lemaisa. Right? Hamaisa asher ya'asun. Right? What you do. Right? And what we do, is with bechira. What we do is with hishtadlus. Right? And we have to make sure that that's united with the Torah. Right? Never slip from the Torah. They say like this to understand, that it's everything is ritzono, even though I have to make choices, even though I have to make ishtadlus. All right. So it's not contradicting what it means, Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu im ayin. It's actually explaining what Am Yisrael was saying and what their sin was when they asked, Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu im ayin. All right. They didn't ask Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu im lo. Of course they believed in God. Right? Ayin means nowhere. Doesn't mean not. Like, Esa einai ele harim, me ayin yavo Ezri me'im Hashem oseh shamayim v'aretz. I don't know where my Yeshua is coming from. But, okay. Ezri me'im Hashem oseh shamayim v'aretz. When HaKadosh Hu's manhig in a derech that's called ayin, right? That's when it's time for bitachon, because you don't know where the Yeshua is coming from next. No, you don't see it. So me'ayin yavo Ezri me'im Hashem. Right? So HaKadosh was mind. This is all in the Zohar. This is on these psukim. Right? So the HaKadosh was manig with ayin. You don't see what's coming next, and it's time just for bitachon of Ezri me'im Hashem oseh shamayim v'aretz. When it's ma'ayin yavo Ezri, right? As opposed to yesh Hashem b'kirbeinu, that's when HaKadosh He's in your midst. Like the pasuk says when we go to work, Hashem kach mishalech b'kerav machanecha. He's in your midst, la'atzilcha v'sesovecha. Right? The yesh is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is amongst us, and we feel our existence, we feel our can do, and it's because HaKadosh Hu is empowering us. And then there's ayin. He's not empowering us. And I can't see where the Yeshua is coming from next. Right? And you have to go with bitachon. And the truth is that we have to understand that these are not two contradictory hanhagas. They're different, but they're not contradictory. Right? Like we are prone to say, yesh me'ayin. And yesh me'ayin doesn't mean that, just that HaKadosh created the world out of nothingness. Because that's, when we mean that, we mean to say, we don't mean ayin, we mean ayin muchlat in the words Ram, absolute nothingness. And that's what we mean when we say stam yesh me'ayin. Right? When we say stam yesh me'ayin, right? There's anhaga called, there's a way that God runs the world called ayin. Right? That's above our understanding. That just goes, we just have to go with bitachon. Right? And then there's yesh, when we have to do whatever we can do. And it's yesh me'ayin. You have to ask a question like this. Why does hishtadlus work, I mean to say? Why should it work? Because the same God who you have bitachon in says, I want you to make hishtadlus. The same God. So that's why yesh me'ayin. I mean, there's two times when we use this phrase. Sometimes we refer that, Bria was created ex nihilo, but when we say that, we mean ayin muchlat, absolutely. But when we say stam ayin, we're not talking about, there's yesh me'ayin, that even when we do what we can do, it comes from the hidden source. Right? The hidden source that when HaKadosh was manhig that way, that we can't see what to do next, you have to have bitachon. From that same hanhoga comes the ability to make hishtadlus. And the contradiction is only a hang-up of mine. It's not a contradiction. Actually, one flows from the other. Am Yisrael over there got frustrated. And it's all in the Zohar, black and white, that if they would have asked a simple question, is the Anhoga yesh or ayin, it wouldn't have been a sin. But it says, Val nasosam al Hashem. They tested God. God decide. Is it yesh or it's ayin? Well, what made you? Well, you come with a premise as if there's a contradiction here. Your lack of understanding, there's no contradiction here. But that was their sin. They went b'nisyoina. They decided there's a contradiction here. Right? They decided that these two categories are mutually exclusive. Not mutually exclusive. Right? It's your shortness of understanding. Or that's Amalak, who likes to play the issues against each other. Right? And now you could go back and you could understand what it means that if you lie about weights and measures, Amalek comes. Lying about weights and measures means to bring suffix, not being exacting. And you could be non-exacting in two ways. Right? First of all, you could have a crooked head. That's a serious problem. Right? Yeah, and that problem is not going to be corrected until... which means that the etzem scale is broken. The balance is not balanced. The old scales has to be perfectly balanced. The balance is off. The scale is broken. The thing that holds the plates is not really balanced. Right? That's the problem that we have. The das tovara. But then you could accentuate the problem. Amplify the problem. Make the problem exponentially more. That not only is the scale itself not balanced, you use crooked weights and measures. You use the categories that you're working with. The categories that you're working with are wrong, are inaccurate. You're working with fake categories. Right? Isn't that what we're up against today? Right? You're a kind person? You're a kind person? Let the refugees in. Kindness, right? Right? It says the weights and measures off. Aside from the thinking is off, there's like the thinking being off, and that's the Eitz Hadas Tovara, and that's something that we're still suffering from. And the answer to that is Torah, but there's also a more basic thing. The categories that you're working with to decide something, are those categories true? If the categories themselves are forth, the way your concept of what's right and what's wrong, if the weights and measures are off, then you're exponentially. Right? And the Torah Baruch Hashem clears us up on both counts. The Torah gives us the correct weights and measures of what's right and what's wrong, correct standards. Right? But of course, the Limud Torah and the Pilpul Torah, right, is what straightens out our head. Right? And that's why Torah Sheba'al Peh, it says in the Zohar, Torah Sheba'al Peh is the antidote for the Chet Eitz Hadas Tovara. It's a Zohar that says the Torah Shebachsav is connected to the Eitz HaChaim. Torah Shebachsav, there's no doubt. This is what God said. There's no two ways about it. Torah Sheba'al Peh, you have all the pilpul, and pilpul could go in many different directions. We need that pilpul to straighten out our heads. That mental exercise, is, checking ourselves against error, and forcing ourselves, navigating our brains in the right direction. That's what clears the head. All right, and the Muhammad of Amalek is on these two levels. All right, because you to rid the world of Amalek, you got to get. It's Amalek, I'm telling you, it's Amalek. Yes, Yeah. All right. We have to get rid of the Sveikus, and the Sveikus that he gives us is the wedges that he drives between two truths, trying to make them seem like they contradict each other. All right? So now you understand, that and then we'll explain what will be B'chol Dor V'Dor. But you can understand now why the Milchama against Amalek was fought on two levels, with Moshe and Yehoshua. Moshe Torah Shebechsav, Yehoshua Torah Shebal Peh. What does Moshe Rabbeinu tell Yehoshua? Bechar lanu anoshim b'tzei. Bechira. Choose men. Bechira. Then Moshe Rabbeinu is beside Yediyah, and Yehoshua is the Bechira. Right? When Moshe Rabbeinu's hands are up, over the head, right? That's when Am Yisrael wins, right? Because the hands, which represent doing and hishtadlus, what Yeshua is doing with the sword, you have to raise the hands above the head, right? Because our minds maybe cannot reconcile how hishtadlus and bitachon are both true, and even when you're doing hishtadlus, you have to have bitachon. So the hands have to be raised above the head. And what does it say? V'yu yadav emuna abo hashemish. The hands being above it are called emuna. So Uncle says tefillah, but of course it means, but emuna, right? Emuna pshuta, right? That even if I can't get my head around it, as to how both the hishtadlus and bitachon are both equally true, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants both, just like He wants a Torah Shebechsav and He wants a Torah Shebal Peh. Right? So that's cool. You have to raise your hands above your head, right? V'yadav emuna, and it's emuna goes be over the head, right? To understand that everything you do with your hands is also from the same God that you have bitachon in. And that's why the hands were over the head. Yehoshua's hands with the sword was matzliach. When you get your hands over your head, right? With the emunah that it's not a contradiction to bitachon. The same God you have bitachon in is giving you the koach to work with your hands. When you reconcile the two, you close the gap. And those hands above the head was a tikkun of rafu yedehem min haTorah. The hands slip from the Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu brings the hands up. Is to bring the hands back to the Torah. Bring the hishtadlus back to the bitachon. Right? Bring the bechira back to the yediyah. So bechar lo nashim, you do with the sword, hishtadlus, and with bechira, bechar lo nashim, and I'm going to be on representing the yediyah and the bitachon, and we're going to sew up the gap, because that gap is where Amalek is, that wedge that he drives, right? And that's why after the war, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, "Ksov zos zikorom b'sefer Torah shebechsav." V'sim ba'oznei Yehoshua, Torah Shebal Peh. Put it in his ears. Tell it over to him. Right? Holding the two together. The Torah Shebechsav, that is the unmitigated word of God. No room for machlokas over there. No, it just is. Right? But there's also the Torah Shebal Peh, which is Nislabish in people, and they go together. They go together. The yesh and the ayin are both true. They go together. It's a fake war. It's fake news that there's a stira between Yediyah and Bechira, or between Hishtadlus and Bitachon. That's Amalek. It's Amalek playing with your mind. Now, maybe the Das Tovra is susceptible to his trickery, so that's why you have to raise your hands over your head. Emunah. And that's why it was so important to Esther. No, it's so important to Esther to make sure that the days of Purim also become part of Torah Shebechsav, not just Torah Shebal Peh. There's a re-acceptance on the Torah Shebal Peh, right? And it's all, it's not written anywhere. Our chiyuv to uphold Purim is a takana of the Anshe Knesset Hagdolah, or an acceptance of the people according to others. But it makes it all the power of Torah Shebal Peh. The people instituted. Am Yisrael, Knesset Yisrael, Torah Shebal Peh, made Purim. But it has to reach Torah Shebechsav also. She thought that it should be in the scriptures. Because that's how Amalek is defeated, when it reaches the clarity of Torah Shebechsav also, the clarity of the unmitigated word of God. Right. As the Rambam says, the difference between Ruach HaKodesh and Nevuah is that Nevuah, a person is in a state of total light. As opposed to Ruach HaKodesh, it's sort of like having a flashlight. And that's just between Purim and Hanukkah also. So Hanukkah is a candle. I don't have time to explain this. Hanukkah is a candle. It's only Torah Sheba'al Peh. Kiner mitzvah is Torah Sheba'al Peh. It's only Torah Sheba'al Peh. That's why there's no Megillas Hanukkah, and that's why it's a candle trying to dispel the light. All right, but Purim is or mamish. We went v'nafochu, from darkness to light. Right, we're in a state of total clarity, like the state of the type of clarity you have when you have, the type of level of clarity that could be inscribed in Kisvei HaKodesh. Right, that's why there's a Sudas Mitzvah on Purim. There's no Sudas Mitzvah on Hanukkah. It's not the same revelation. It's a revelation like Kisvei HaKodesh, just like it becomes black on white, ink on paper, becomes physically manifest. So also Purim is a simcha of the body. Becomes physically manifest. The clarity, it's not just an intellectual clarity. It's a clarity that's like penetrates all the way down to physicality. Just like, the Torah Shebechsav becomes a book. That's what it says in the Zohar, letters on parchas connected the guf. So if the Torah is nislabish in black on white, that means that this clarity even reaches the body. That's why it's a din of Sudas Mitzvah. And Hanukkah remains only Torah Sheba'al Peh. That's why there's no Sudas Mitzvah. That's why it's a candle. And there's no Megillas Hanukkah. All right. So where is Moshe Rabbeinu in every generation? So listen to this Tanchuma, and you'll understand how Shabbos Zachor is an integral part of Purim, and has to be Shabbos. Tanchuma says in Parshas Kiseitze, on the Psukim of Zachor Esher Sorcha Amalak, that seemingly Mikra Echad, there's like one, for the Chacham and Exil. Right, Shlomo says seemingly, the wise man and the fool. Same thing happens to both of them. And then, but then he says, you revise that, Ein Zichor Chacham and Maksil Olamim. They don't get remembered together. That's Psukim and Koheles, amongst the many contradictions that Chazal work laboriously to be metaretz. So Ein Zichor Chacham and Maksil. They're not remembered together. So the Medrash says, what's it talking about? Talking about Shabbos and Amalek. And the Medrash gives a mashal like this. A king made a big, big Suda. All right, and the Suda is, laden with kol tuv. And he said, all right, the king says, before we eat, Zochor Ploini Oavi. Right, before we eat, let's just remember so-and-so I love. All right. And then, then they're Mekayim, Mechia, right? And there's not even, from any food on the table, there's not even a zecher. Right? Nothing left. Right? Food. The table's empty. Right? So then he says, the table's empty. So the king says, Zochor Ploni Soni. Let's just take out a minute to remember so-and-so who I hate. So people said, listen, you gave equal treatment. A moment of silence for this guy, a moment of silence for that guy. This guy you love is going to hate. Zei skarti al shulchan mole. Zei skarti al shulchan reikon. This guy I remembered on a full table. That guy I remembered on an empty table. So also, seemingly, Shabbos says, Zochar Yom Shabbos L'kacho. And by Amok says, Zochar Yom Molek. God told us to remember both ends. Seemingly equal treatment. No, but Zochar Yom Shabbos L'kacho, when we make Kiddush, it's on a table, Mole Kol Tuv. And that's the halacha, the Zohar says, there should be some food on the table, not, should be a Kiddush when the table's, there's tuv, there's goodness, not on a psara rekanya empty table. All right? It's Zohar, so there's got to be something on the table. The salads, schmears that you put on the challah, something, Yeah. Anyway, we say Zohar, for kol tuv, whereas with the Zechir of Amalek is in the context of Timcha Zecher Amalek. Right? Right? The context told you, Shabbos is full. Amalek is empty. We remember, the pshat is like this, is that that on Shabbos, we get in touch with reality. Remember, we get our score, we get our head back on straight. We get, during the week, we're just, wrapped up in what we're doing on Shabbos. If you keep Shabbos correctly and you really don't talk about Divrei Chol b'Shabbos, you get back in touch with reality, with what is. What is. Right? As opposed to Amalek, he's what isn't. And you need the Shabbos in contrast, the what is versus the what isn't. going back to the level of Adam Rishon Kodem Achet, where he saw Emes versus Sheker. You need Shabbos to give you that clarity. Shabbos teaches you, reminds you of what reality is, what the world is, and how who created and it belongs to him. All right? And you need Shabbos, which is the day of Zohar, to properly be Mekayim, the other type of Zohar, to see the contrast, the whole versus the empty. But this is especially true because this has to be synthesized with another medrash in Parshas Kisisa. Right? No, that Moshe Rabbeinu asked HaKadosh Baruch Hu, "B'ma teromim karnam shel Yisrael?" How are you going to raise up Am Yisrael? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe Rabbeinu, on Shabbos, you're going to give back the Ksarim of Naasav and Nishma. The Ksarim of Naasav and Nishma that we lost because of Chet HaEgel. Moshe Rabbeinu gives us these Ksarim back on Shabbos. On every Shabbos. And that's what we say in Shabbos. Yismach Moshe Matnas Chelko. Right? Right? Because says, the Mefarshim right there, he's happy with his own Keser, Naasav and Nishma. He's happy with Matnas Chelko. Because the other one's day is watching for us, he gives us back. Shabbos is the day when Moshe Rabbeinu reinfuses the koach of Matan Torah into Am Yisrael. Just like the Torah was originally given on Shabbos, the Kuyam Shabbos in the Torah Yisrael. And, it was glorious at the time. We had got a Keser Nasa, Keser Nishma. We lost all with Chet HaEgel. On Shabbos, Moshe Rabbeinu infuses his koach into Am Yisrael. And just Stam his koach, but mamish the koach of the original Kabbalah Satorah, before Chet HaEgel. The Ksarim Nasa Nishma, he gives us this koach on every Shabbos. I mean, if you keep Shabbos properly, you can tap into it. The clarity. That's why we talk about Matan Torah in the Shabbos of Shacharis, Shacharis of Shabbos. Right? The teacher that the Shabbos before Purim is the koach of Moshe Rabbeinu. It's the koach of the Torah. It's the koach of Matan Torah. Right? It's the koach of so it's Shabbos is the Moshe Rabbeinu figure in Kol Dor V'Dor. And not to the exclusion of everything that was said over here, Torah and Tefillah, Torah, which is all from Moshe Rabbeinu, the clarity of Torah, but Shabbos, the day of clarity, of seeing what is. And then in contrast, on Daf Kan Davei, when you see what is, then you can fully understand how Amalak is what isn't. Right? On this day, Moshe Rabbeinu gives his koach to Am Yisrael. This is the day where he gives us back the Ksarim of Naasav and Nishma, which is connected to hands over the head. Naasav before Nishma, doing even before you hear. That's hands over your head. Right? We get that koach on Shabbos. And that's why Shabbos Zohar has to be on Shabbos and has to be before Purim. That this is the function of Shabbos Zohar. That is the Moshe Rabbeinu, the Muhammad Amalek, B'schus, that we have a good Shabbos Zohar. With Molei Kol Tov, right, that is the Niskarim, that we can have the Asiyah of Mechias Amalek B'Polim Purim HaBolim L'Teva. Fe'ochem Purim.
Isn't today also Esther Hamalka's yard site?
I don't know.
I just got an email. Yeah.
Yeah.